Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from Perturi Law in Tyson, Virginia. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, Mark Haas, Association for Enterprise Growth, and David Kunzman, Perturi Law. Mark, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the air today, please?
Sure. On today's show, we have Casey Baynes, founder and executive director of Casey Cares Foundation, Gary Shiffman, CEO of Giant Oak, Jeff Galvin, CEO and founder of American Gene Technologies, and Geoffrey Lewis, founder of Lewis Limited Productions.
Let's get to know our first guest, Casey Baynes, founder and executive director of Casey Cares Foundation. Casey, what is Casey Cares Foundation? What are you guys doing?
At Casey Cares, we provide little moments and lasting memories for all critically ill children, their family members, not once in a lifetime or once a year, but continuously through their treatment process and even after the loss of a child or the family is in remission.
How many kids do you help a year, or have you helped total or something like that?
We are able to help over 35,000 participants at Casey Cares with a minimal budget of $2 million a year, mainly because we are a volunteer-driven organization that runs like a for-profit company would.
And where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Forest Hill, Maryland.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have two brothers. My one brother, Chad, is 5 years older than me. My other brother did not survive. He would have been 2 years older than me.
Ooh. How do you know that? And how do you know that there was a brother that didn't survive? And what do you think the effect of your brother that didn't survive is on you?
I come from a very close-knit family. So every year on my brother Todd's birthday, we would celebrate the joy, although it was short, that he brought to my family.
Wow. So you're aware that you had an older brother. And how does this affect your mom, your dad, yourself as a kid? You know, what's it? And you mentioned there was a quote in the green room you mentioned, which was, you're obsessed with alleviating suffering. Where'd that come from?
Hindsight has so much to offer us. And when I was growing up in a loving family who was very busy, my family were, both my mom and my dad were entrepreneurs. And it was at a very young age that I became obsessed with alleviating suffering.
Yeah, what was that picture looking like? What do you remember about that?
I remember growing up and feeling as if I wanted to help my parents. I wanted to help take some of the suffering and the struggle that I saw in their eyes every single day. And I believed as a young child, that perhaps if I brought them enough happiness or success to fill the void that they're experiencing because of the loss of a child, maybe that would bring them to a point where they would feel fulfilled.
What's that have to do with this organization known as Casey Cares Foundation, helping 35,000 kids a year?
It's not a direct line by any means, although I know it makes sense. It certainly
sounds like it is, yeah. What do you think's the connection there?
I know at Casey Cares, that's what we do. We step into these families' lives who aren't able to see the future. They feel as that they're in the constant dark, and we're there to help turn on the light so they can experience a little bit of joy, even though they need to fill a lifetime of memories into a few short years.
David?
I understand your parents owned a medical equipment company. How young were you when you started working there?
I have memories forever of going and helping my mom go in and visit patients, servicing their H cylinders and their concentrators, changing the tubing. And I even remember going in when HIV was just revealed and very, very scary, going in double, triple gloved with masks on, and having to go, after we visited that patient, having to go out in the driveway, take off all of our clothing, wash with bleach, and most devastatingly, look at the tears in my mom's eyes because she didn't know what she had just exposed me to.
And your mom, you mentioned the green room, your mom dove right in. She had the loss of a child, but she dove in, was very task-oriented, helping others, through her work. And can you tell us a little bit about what you learned from that?
My mom is a nurse by trade, and then she dove in by having a, durable medical and equipment supply company. So she had this personal touch that these patients could feel, not just when she was there, but anytime they needed her. I'm so lucky to get that angle on business, whereas my father was more the numbers guy and results oriented. So in order to spend time with my dad, it was spending it in his home office from 8 o'clock until midnight to try to get that time in.
And how young were you when you started making money?
Gosh, the first time I started making money, I was probably 8. And of course, that was odd jobs around the neighborhood, which I had constructed a flyer to put in everybody's mailbox, cutting lawns, babysitting. And of course, when you're babysitting, I knew that I wanted to get that next job. And how was I going to get that? I was going to have the dishes done. I was going to have the trash taken out and make sure all the kids' clothes were dirty and in the hamper where needed.
So your business philosophy is to go above and beyond.
Absolutely. I've always been taught that you need to go the extra mile to make it really worth it.
So when you were younger, you had this feeling of you wanting to help others. What was the first time you really acted on that and had a project or something to help others?
I remember coming up from my father's home office and saying goodnight to my mom where she would watch the evening news, the 11 o'clock news, and I saw this devastating victim on TV. She was 6 years old, and there was major flooding. She was questioning how she was going to fall asleep that evening because she didn't have her beloved teddy bear. And with that, I went back to bed, actually just to my room, and started developing flyers and a massive plan to help these families in need, not just that little girl, but all the families in the Midwest. And we were able to send 2 full truckloads of supplies that were needed to help these families rebuild their lives.
So you mentioned that at age 19, you started thinking sort of broadly and financially about business. You made an investment at age 19. What was that?
So at 19, I decided that it was time to move out, and I looked at my options as far as renting versus buying and having 2 roommates. So I decided to have 2 roommates, and all of a sudden, from having an expense line, I now had a profit line. It was a great way to get started.
Well, what's that have to do with how you run this nonprofit, the fact you were 19 and you decided you were going to make an investment in real estate and how you were going to make it an investment as opposed to an expense? What's that have to do with how you're running this nonprofit?
Casey Cares started in 2000 because there was nobody else doing it. And I feel that that's been the key to my success in life, is that I would recognize that nobody else was doing things, whether that was when I was little and we were building forts in the woods with all the neighborhood kids, or whether that was starting Casey Cares or starting to buy a house at a young age at 19 when the rest of my friends didn't have a care in the world about owning a home.
So you mentioned that you felt driven. What did you mean by that? What are you talking about?
I was diagnosed when I was in 3rd grade being dyslexic. There wasn't a lot of talk around that. But what I knew was that what my mom told me is that I was never allowed to use the word can't. I went into my 3rd grade class and in all the dictionaries took a big black marker and blacked out the word can't. Sadly, my parents ended up having to purchase like 25 dictionaries for the school, but I took that lesson to heart, and I still to this day do not use the word can't.
How's that affecting you nowadays?
Well, there's never a dull moment. When you eliminate the word can't from your vocabulary, there's so much opportunity.
Mark?
So you said when you weren't building forts in the woods, do you have other activities? Do you play sports?
Yes, I love and still love sports. My major sports were softball and basketball, and loved every minute of it. I'm perhaps so sports-driven growing up with an older brother, and also all of my friends were guys growing up.
Okay. What position did you play on those teams?
I was the center in basketball and shortstop in softball.
And what's the characteristic of those positions? What traits do you bring from playing those positions, or why were you selected for those positions?
I believe it's probably no nonsense, always on your toes, and always ready.
What's the best part of your day nowadays?
The best part of my day is getting my kids up in the morning. As crazy as that may sound, I cherish the opportunity to wake up with them, make them breakfast, sometimes even crepes on good days, and spending that time with them. And we talk about our days, what they have ahead, what I have ahead, what my husband has ahead. It is an amazing way to start our day.
What's an amazing way to start your day? By making them crepes, or what am I missing there? Tell me more about that.
My crepes are pretty amazing, considering that's the only thing I can make. But it's amazing to connect with them and to realize that we all have a mission for our day. We all have a passion. We all get just today. And my kids know, and my husband and I live to know that we're never going to get today again. So today is a gift, and we are going to use every bit of that day to the best of our ability.
What's the website address for Casey Cares Foundation? CaseyCares.org. Let me have that one more time.
CaseyCares.org.
We've been speaking with Casey Baynes, founder and executive director of Casey Cares Foundation. Back in a moment right after this Business Spotlight. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Dr. Gary Shiffman, CEO of Giant Oak. Gary, Dr. Shiffman, what is Giant Oak? What are you guys doing?
Giant Oak's a software company where we make screening and vetting easy. Our customers use it for screening and vetting large populations looking for types of risks and threats.
Tell me, how large or how small is this business?
30 people.
And where are you from originally?
Originally from Chicago.
How many brothers and sisters?
I've got one brother. He's 2.5 years older than me.
And tell us, 8 to 14 years old, what kind of stuff were you doing?
I was involved in everything when I was that age. I was on multiple sports teams, hockey, basketball, track and field. I did the decathlon. I was in band. I was in multiple activities. What
was your favorite sport?
Ice hockey was my favorite sport.
And what was your role on the team?
I was the goalie.
And what was the personality trait of the goalie that you brought to being a goalie, and why did you want to be the goalie?
What I brought to being the goalie was the kind of that solid person on which the entire team depends. When somebody's skating down the ice and the game's on the line, it's all on you and on your shoulders, and I love that.
What's that have to do with being the CEO of Giant Oak?
Oh, it has everything to do with being a CEO. I feel every day I go to work, I know that everybody is going to make their mortgage payments or their rent payments if I make the right decisions, and they won't if I make the wrong decisions.
And you made a comment that you're also involved with jazz band. What was jazz band all about for you?
I was just involved in everything, and I just enjoyed participating in all of the activities. And one of the things that I really got out of it was the idea of not fitting stereotypes or breaking stereotypes. Where I went to school, the kids in band didn't do sports, and the kids in sports didn't do band. And I did both. I did everything, and I loved that role.
Mark?
So when did you start making money?
My first job was when I was 16 years old.
Doing what?
I was scooping ice cream in an ice cream and candy store in my town, and it was a candy store owned by an old couple, Grandma and Grandpa, and I was their one employee.
What kind of responsibilities do they task you with?
Well, first and foremost, I had to become familiar with every ice cream they sold in the store, which was a great way to start my professional working career. But soon after that, they gave me a lot of responsibility in terms of opening the store, running the store while they were out, doing other errands, closing up. And I really learned a lot of that responsibility that's similar to the comment about being a goalie in hockey, just knowing that people are counting on you and just making sure you're there and you're solid and you're doing what you need to do.
Did you read a lot as a kid?
I did read a lot. I read strange books as a kid, though.
What kind of stuff was attractive to you?
Yeah, for some reason I was interested in how the human mind worked, how human behavior worked, the impact of culture and religion and society on human behavior. Was there a particular event, or is just sort of it grew on you? Yeah, I don't recall any particular event, but I think I had this reflective moment where I realized that my behavior wasn't common. I was like I said, breaking barriers in terms of the activities that I was participating in, and that caused me to be reflective and say, well, what is it that causes us to be who we are, behave the way we behave? And I've been consumed with that topic my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Consumed with what topic?
How we become who we become, how we choose to what path we choose to take in life.
And what's that have to do with your business model?
Yeah, we're building software which is based upon the concepts and the science of human behavior.
Who are your customers?
Customers are government agencies and banks.
And what do you do for them?
We do screening and vetting. So if you're a government agency or a bank, you need to make sure that you're not interacting with human traffickers, money launderers, and we help make sure they do that.
And how's this reflective of your personality?
Couple of things. First of all, human behavior. There's a science to human behavior. Humans are more predictable than we like to think that we are, and I think that's something that I learned when I was a teenager, whether I knew it at the time or not. So understanding that we have free will, but we're still highly predictable, and that applies to people engaged in bad activities as well as all of us. And if you can understand people and their engagement in illicit activities, you can understand and hopefully make the world a little bit safer.
Mm-hmm. David?
You mentioned playing goalie a few times. I once heard an NHL goalie being interviewed who said he viewed his job as giving his teammates the chance to excel, to go and score goals. His job was to stop the puck. They get the glory. Is that what you do with Giant Oak?
Yeah, I love that story. The goalie doesn't always get the glory. The guy who gets the hat trick or the gal who gets the hat trick gets the glory. I love playing that role, which is just being solid, being the foundation upon which the team can perform. I think that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
Yeah. Who were your friends growing up?
Just like my activities, my friends reflected my activities. My friends were all over the place. I had friends who were athletes, friends who were in chess club, friends who were in band, friends who were apathetic and engaged in no activities. I was all over the place with the people I hung out with, and I realized that was unique, and I loved that aspect of my childhood.
And what did you get out of sort of cycling between these groups?
You can't understand human behavior unless you can see the full diversity of human behavior, and it allowed me to do that.
And how's that helped you build this business?
The business is really motivated by this insight into patterns of human behavior and making sense of it, especially today in the so-called big data world. We have data, we are overwhelmed with information. Mm-hmm. That data reflects human behavior. You just have to be a behavioral scientist to think about data in that
mm-hmm.
way,
mm-hmm.
and we uniquely do that.
Mark?
Is there a particular movie or literary character that sort of resonates with you?
My favorite character is Michael Corleone from The Godfather. Absolutely.
Is that because who you aspire to become?
No, I absolutely do not. What I love Michael Corleone because he's to me the ideal villain. Mm-hmm. He is clearly evil. He's very likable. He fits in lots of different environments. He claims to be not a part of the family, and he's going to be different, and yet he fails to do that, and he falls into the trap. And I think he is my ideal villain.
If nothing, you're consistent in your worldview and building this company of Giant Oak.
So how do you get involved with giving back, Dr. Gary Shiffman?
So my favorite charity right now that I'm supporting is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Why?
Because the center is one example of many where there's this acknowledgement that there is coercion, there is violence, there is evil in the world, and I think professionally, Giant Oak seeks to identify the perpetrators, but I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of taking care of the victims and looking out for the most vulnerable in society, and the National Center does that, and I love supporting them.
Tell us a little bit more about how your childhood helped cast the framework help shape you for what you're doing nowadays.
Yeah, so I think this passion for, I've said the understanding human behavior. Another way to say it is the human condition. And the human condition can be defined a lot of different ways, but it's this idea that life can be very hard, life can be challenging, and we're all in it together. So how do we support each other? How do we get through this? How do we look out for the vulnerable? How do we make it harder for people to engage in bad activities? And that's exactly who I am today.
Well, what's the website address of this organization known as Giant Oak?
It's giantoak.com.
Let me have that one more time.
giantoak.com.
We've been speaking with Dr. Gary Shiffman, CEO of Giant Oak, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We will be back in a moment, right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohn. We'd like to introduce Jeff Galvin, CEO and founder of American Gene Technologies International. Jeff, what is American Gene Technologies International? What are you guys doing?
We're a gene and cell therapy company. We use viral vectors to cure incurable diseases.
How large or how small is this company?
We have 30 people and 24,000 square feet in Rockville, Maryland.
30 people. And where did the venture capital come from to start this business?
Actually, for the first 5 years, I pretty much funded it myself. We got some grants from NIH, but I put in $2.5 million in the first 5 years.
You put in $2.5 million of your own money into this business. Okay. Where you from originally?
Lexington, Massachusetts.
How many brothers and sisters?
I'm the oldest of 3.
And what was going on with you 8 to 14 years old?
I think maybe typical entrepreneurial stuff in the early days, so, cutting lawns and things like that. And
tell us the good stuff about what was going on in 7th grade.
Well, I discovered and fell in love with computers, and I learned to program at maybe about age 12 or 13, and then I ended up wandering around MIT looking for resources and got recruited to teach a weekend class in programming basic.
So you're 14 years old and you're teaching at MIT. Okay, that's normal. And tell me a little bit about what did you really enjoy about that?
Well, what I loved about computers is I just saw them as being something that could really enhance everybody's lives, and I love sharing my excitement about computers with others.
What does sharing your excitement have to do with the success of this organization known as American Gene Technologies International?
Well, I think that passion for things is a huge driver in life, and I have a similar passion for gene and cell therapy as I had for computers. I see gene and cell therapy as unlocking incredible benefits for humanity, for my fellow mankind. And
give me that. Somebody once mentioned an idea to you, and you said you want wow. What was that? What's the vision here?
Well, the aha moment was when I met a guy named Roscoe Brady at NIH, and he told me about viral vectors for the first time. And basically, you can crack open viruses. You can scoop out viral DNA that hijacks your cells. It's basically software for the human cell. You can scoop out that bad DNA, and you can put in whatever you want. So we can convert viruses into updates to improve the operation of human cells.
Wow. Mark?
So what did your parents do?
Well, my dad graduated from MIT and went to work for Lincoln Labs, pioneering radar, and then he went on into business, a small business, and had 140 different patents for signal processing. And he was a pioneer in burglar alarms.
Mm-hmm. What about your mother?
My mother graduated very, very young, actually, from Harvard, I think age 18 or 19. And actually, I was 1 year old when she graduated, and then she went on to work in a computer consulting service.
Okay. Did you have a close family?
I think my mom and dad were very busy, so they didn't have that much time for us, so we kind of brought ourselves up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
what did having a dad with 140 patents and a mom that went to Harvard while she was pregnant, what's that have to do with you? How's that affecting you?
I think probably my whole family thinks that level of achievement is just normal or average.
Uh-huh. So what's that? So is it affecting your own level of expectations and feeling good enough?
Well, I think that we never got any feedback that we derived as kids. We never got the positive feedback, good job on an A. You bring home all A's. They should have been all A pluses, basically. So, yeah, we have very high expectations for ourselves.
Uh-huh.
How does that change your worldview as far as achievement, limitations, creativity?
Well, I think it was a good thing that it made me feel that there are no limitations, and creativity has been a very important word in my life. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, we say at American Gene Technologies, where creativity cures. The idea is to bring in a bunch of really smart people that are naturally hard workers, but that are passionate about the mission. And then, when you have people like that in there and you create a creative environment, you can possibly achieve greatness, and that's the plan.
What's the plan?
Well, the plan is to take all those talents, that came together because there was I had this vision for what the future could be, and then I ran around and evangelized that vision, and it attracted a lot of people that believed in that vision, that sort of drank the Kool-Aid with me, and that attracted great scientists and also money from high net worth individuals who could see that vision as well to drive the company. And as a result, we're on the eve of testing a cure for HIV in the clinic this year.
Wait a minute. You told us that a number of years ago you could have retired when you were 41 from Silicon Valley, but yet you took a big chunk of your net worth and sunk it into this business. Why didn't you just go to Florida and retire?
Well, I actually had done that for a while. So in Silicon Valley, I still had my house in San Carlos, California, and then I bought a house in Maui, and I was flying back and forth and doing nothing, and I got bored. And I wanted a little stimulation for my brain, but then, as fate would have it, I met Roscoe Brady, and I fell in love with the next big thing in my life. So it was like computers all over again.
You don't need to work. You want to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I did not need to work at that point. I was basically retired.
But you want to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that, passion it just drives you. You see something that you're really interested in and really excited about, and, that's something that just provides a tremendous amount of joy.
David?
Did you have any mentors when you were growing up?
No, not really. I was a very independent kid. I think, being the oldest of three children and having to cook for them and clean for them while my parents were working really hard and living in a really great neighborhood, a village was bringing up the kids. But that level of independence, I don't think I really had mentors.
Mark?
So you've made the creative leap from electrical systems to biological systems. Can you see the possibility of a third act?
I have no idea what that would be, but if I fall in love with something, then yes. But I think this is the software industry for the next 100 years. I think I still have probably at least 10 good years in me, and I cannot possibly run out of things to do in that amount of time. So I may get carried out feet first from where I am someday if I think that I'm sharp enough to keep leading this company.
What do you mean it's the software industry? Give me that quote again. What was that about?
Well, the computer on your desk is programmed in zeros and ones. Your cells are programmed in ACTG, the nucleotides of your DNA. And if you change the software in your cell, you change the behavior. And same thing as computers. So what we are able to do right now is edit your DNA. And by editing your DNA, we completely change the behavior of cells. We can improve them, whatever we want to do.
But isn't this all hopeful stuff? I mean, is this really proven?
Oh, no, this is here today. There's a cure for blindness that came from another company called Spark. They just got bought by Roche for $4.5 billion. There's a cure for spinal muscular atrophy, a deadly disease that... So
you're seeing what's proven science. You're seeing vision around it. You're seeing the applications of this technology, aren't you?
I think maybe one of the differences in my approach is that I look at this as a software industry. Everybody looks at this as a new drug development modality in an old industry of biotech and pharmaceuticals. So we're trying to leverage what's really strong about gene and cell therapy, and that is that it is really like software. You can debug it. You can find a whole bunch of common elements that you can mix and match to cure a myriad of diseases. You can, find efficiencies that wouldn't be typical of drug development in the past.
What traits do you value most highly in the people you work with?
Brains, number one, work ethic, and then excitement over something. You got to be interested in what you are heading for. I mean, that's very characteristic of me. I just call it passion. After that, creativity. And it's, creativity is just a huge theme at the company.
You're starting a revolution with your technology and your approach to it. And you're from Lexington, Massachusetts, where our revolution started.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I'm glad you said revolution instead of me. But, yeah, I think that's true. And, I don't know whether being from Lexington and the birthplace of the nation and the shot heard around the world, and that probably just plays in with the general theme is anything is possible, and you just look at what's right and you drive towards that.
It's interesting that you could have retired, but you decided not to. And I thought the American dream was you hit 62 and you retire, but that's just not the way you're built. That's fascinating to me. What's the website address?
AmericanGene.com.
Let me have that one more time. How do you spell that anyway?
American with the N and Gene spelled GENE.com.
AmericanGene.com. We've been speaking with Jeff Galvin, CEO and founder of American Gene Technologies International. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. Back in a moment, right after this Business Spotlight. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Geoffrey Lewis, founder of Lewis Limited Productions. Geoffrey, what is Lewis Limited Productions? What are you guys doing?
Well, we're a production company, but we're an online training and education. And our biggest claim to fame is that we were training our troops. We were training our troops on cultural awareness. Mm-hmm. So before they touched down in that certain country, they needed to know the culture of that country. And we were doing that interactively online training.
Mm-hmm. And how large or how small is this company?
Right now, we're just 10 employees.
Mm-hmm. And where are you from originally?
Washington, D.C.
How many brothers and sisters do you got, and where are you in the pecking order?
I have 3 brothers, and I am number 2.
You're number 2 of 4 brothers.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the effect of you growing up with 3 other brothers, and what were you doing to make money when you were a kid?
Growing up with 3 other brothers was great. 2 of my 3 brothers and I started a dance group. We were the Jackson 5 in the 70s, called the Lewis Brothers, and we were dancing all over Washington, D.C. and all over the counties, and we were winning talent contests. And then one time, several theaters came up to us and said, "We love what you're doing. We want you to be a part of it." And so they paid us for our dance group at age 13.
All right, so you're with your 2 other brothers in this dance group, and what was your role amongst the 3 of you? What was your role in this team?
Well, as the older of the 3 brothers, or 2 brothers, I sort of took the lead, and I was sort of the manager, sort of choreographed most of the moves, and then put it all together, and then got my brothers to come along, and then we took it from there.
Well, what's that have to do with your role today in this organization known as Lewis Limited Productions?
Well, I mean, when you're a founder and you're managing of a company, you have to take some of those same principles even as you're growing up and apply that to your business today. Mm-hmm. And I always welcome collaboration, and I want people to work with me and not just for me.
Mark.
So what'd your dad do?
My father was the first African-American president and CEO of Bell Atlantic / Verizon, then became the first African-American president of NPR, National Public Radio. And then after he retired from there, President Clinton asked him to be the U.S. ambassador to South Africa.
How about your mom?
My mom, she was a homemaker, but she also did a lot of volunteering. She volunteered at Lorton Prison and helping some of the inmates. She volunteered at the Green Door and did a lot of things around Washington, D.C.
How did that, they were the anchor of the family, obviously. Tell me about family dinners, experiences in the home.
Absolutely. You're right about the anchor. What my parents decided to do is we always had family dinners. Dad would come home. We'd all sit around the table. My parents would never sit at the head of the table. They would always sit in the middle. They'd let us sit at the head. And then they gave us a chance to talk about our day and talk about what we want to talk about during the table. Mm-hmm. The other thing is my father, when he'd come home in those positions, he would never stop talking about what he went through in his challenges. So I learned a lot, all of his business challenges at that time, and I applied some of those same principles in what he did in my business today.
So it was at-home business school.
Exactly right.
Okay, that's great. So tell me more about growing up. You said you're writing your autobiography. You're well ahead of the game. What's the chapter title for ages 8 to 14?
Well, that's really when I started to really come out of my shell. I was a very shy kid growing up. I actually was diagnosed as well with a learning disability, and I learned differently from everybody else. So, I had a tough time reading in front of people. I didn't like to read, and I did a lot of things because one thing that I was very passionate about was I did not want to have, as an African-American young boy, to have the same stereotype of someone saying that person's dumb. Mm-hmm. And so I always did things to try to better myself way ahead of time. So I would ask the teacher, what we were going to read today. And so I'd go home and I'd read it over and over and over again. So if I was called on, I would be able to read and not feel stupid.
Sounds like you were kind of in charge of your life, even at a young age. Tell me about your role in a group of friends you had.
I still keep in touch with a lot of my friends I had when I started in grade school. I have one friend, we went to first grade together, all the way through 12th grade together, and we still keep in touch. And so when I have friends, I have close-knit friends, I make sure that I stay in touch with them and we stay together. I think friendship is extremely important to me.
And what was your role in that group of friends that you grew up with?
I was sort of considered maybe more of the leader than a follower, but I did, as I said before, listen to everybody, and we all did things together as a team, but not necessarily just one dictating the other.
Tell us about Clinton.
I had a mentor, and his name was Clint West, and he was a prominent businessman in Washington, D.C., started and founded his own company. And he was very instrumental in my life because he sort of took me in his wing. I remember just this one story where his administrative assistant would say, "Oh, Jeff is coming to see him." Well, that's another 2 hours out of his day we're not going to see, because he would just take that time to spend with me. Unfortunately, he passed away too early. And so it left a big hole in my life because he was somebody I turned to a lot to get a lot of business advice.
You also got some wisdom from your mother in particular. Tell us about that.
I did. My mother, it was unbelievable. She graduated, or she went to college at age 14, and she met my father in college. My mother was a junior at college. My father was a freshman, and my father's a year older than my mother. And so, but she has an unbelievable mind. She brought all of her kids up to be colorblind. So she said, "Listen, you just find the people you like, to want to be with, you want to love, and then that's who you be with." And her values were unbelievable when it came to that.
Okay.
Mark?
So you've had you're sort of an interesting character here. You know, you've had this close family, you've close knit friends, learned a lot, done a lot with your dance troupe and others. You're working on cultural awareness in your business. What kind of philanthropic inclinations do you have, or would you like to get into?
Well, growing up, I knew very on that you always have to give back to the community, and so I wanted to give back the way I thought I could. So I've joined a lot of nonprofit boards. I currently sit as chairman of the D.C. Coalition for the Homeless, and our job is obviously to go out of business by making sure everybody has a home. But I've served on a lot of other boards, theater boards. I've served on boards like the YMCA and the American Diabetes Association.
What's the best part of your day?
I love what I do. I love working. The best part of my day is probably
when you say you love what you do. What is it you do?
Well, there's one thing that I decided in running a business is I had to know every aspect of my business. So I do everything. I have my hands in everything. If we do graphic design, I know I do graphic design. I work with my accountants, and I deal with financial stuff. I know how to do production. I can run a video camera. I can do all that stuff. So I know every part of the business. And so no matter what I'm doing that day, I take it with an enthusiasm and moving it forward.
What's that have to do with what you were doing at 13 with your brothers?
Well, you have to think about it when you're talking about choreography, and you're talking about dancing, and you're talking about going after to try to get business to show people what you can do. This was post-internet. This is, pre-internet, pre-video cameras. I mean, we were out there hustling.
So you see some sort of a parallel between you and your two brothers performing choreography, figuring out what to do, what not to do, figuring out how to get the bookings, figuring out the business arrangements, and what you're doing nowadays?
It's the same thing.
What do you mean same thing?
The one thing I loved about my business the most is the marketing aspect. I loved going out there and getting sales. I love talking to people. I love for that person to tell me no, because that's when the sale starts.
What are you talking about?
I turn it into a yes.
Well, wait a minute. Aren't you afraid of rejection?
No. Everyone gets rejected.
So when you hear a no, what goes on in your head then?
Oh, I try to turn it around. And unless they try to kick me out of their office and say I absolutely said no, I'm going to stay there until I try to get you to some sort of a yes.
So you like to convince. You like to persuade.
I do.
So I thought sales was a bad thing, but it sounds to me like, you're not a hard, pushy salesman, but rather you like through a conversation to help people see the reason why.
Absolutely.
So sales is a good thing. Well, what's the website address of your organization?
LewisLimited.com.
Let me have that one more time. How do you spell that?
It's Lewis, Lewis. Limited is all spelled out, LIMITED.com.
LewisLimited.com. We were speaking with Geoffrey Lewis, founder of Lewis Limited Productions here on Executive Leaders Radio. And let's see, Mark, can you give us a rundown on who else we've had the opportunity of speaking with today, please?
Sure, Cohen. On today's show, we had Casey Baynes, founder and executive director of Casey Cares Foundation, Gary Shiffman, CEO of Giant Oak, Jeff Galvin, CEO and founder of American Gene Technologies, and Jeff Lewis, founder of Lewis Limited Production.
Excellent. I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Mark Haas, Association for Enterprise Growth, and David Kunzman, Pretori Law, for giving me a hand structuring the questions, hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. What is the website address for Pretori Law?
It's PretoriLaw.com, PROTORAE Law.com.
And Association for Enterprise Growth?
enterprisegrowth.org.
And don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.